Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live in living color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And I have waited over a year to say this in person to this special guest of the evening. Ciao, Matteo. Matteo, welcome to the graveyard, my friend. Hope all is well.
Ciao, Grande. And hi to the entire graveyard. Pleasure and an honor to be here with you, man.
I am so happy to have you finally come on, the show as an actual guest. Of course, you're always one of the biggest kind of commenters in the chat and supporters in my chat. So I wanted to thank you for that. And I had in the back of my head, I'd been telling you this behind the scenes that, hey, I've been thinking about having Matteo on. I couldn't quite think of what concept of a show to do with you. I initially thought, let's do Three Argento, maybe the Animal Trilogy. And then you suggested the show that we're going to be doing tonight, which is Three Gialli and Zero Regrets. Yes, ladies and gents, we're going to be talking about three Giallo films. I'm super excited. This was Matteo's idea. We'll be discussing The New York Ripper from 1982, The House with the Laughing Windows from 1976, which was a first-time watch for me, and Sleepless from Mr. Dario Argento from the year 2001. This one I actually own. We got a couple people. We had Miss Carter was in the chat before we went live. She goes, "Ciao, Grande and Matteo. Greetings, everyone." So yeah, Miss C's in the house, but I figured I always do this with first time guests, and I want to always do this with first time guests. Matteo, I've got some getting to know you questions, some fun getting to know you questions. And the first one is, what is the movie, horror movie wise, that got you into horror movies?
All right. So, my beginning with horror culture, I want to say that my parents were very sheltered about movies with horror and violence. So I wasn't allowed to watch them when I was a kid. But you always have that friend that the parents don't really care about it. So he's allowed to watch whatever he wants. So I remember watching with this friend for the first time, Dream Warriors. And yeah, so a good movie to get introduced to horror. I loved it, and I think that the TV series, since I'm a child of the 80s, the TV series of 1990, that probably was the final getaway to horror movies.
That's fantastic. I would have never guessed Dream Warriors, man. That's really, really cool. And that's as 80s as it gets, but that's so funny. My parents were a little more lax with it, but it's so fun once you start getting involved in all these movies, dipping your toe into the waters that are these movies, and it's kind of, mesmerizing. But that's really, really cool. I didn't know that. Dream Warriors is one I never would have guessed. Darren Burrows is in the house. He says, "Hey guys, great subject tonight. Hope you guys had a great Christmas." Darren, same to you, man. I think Darren and I, about a year ago, we did the Argento special, and that might have been one of the first episodes you were a commenter on. So crazy enough.
Trauma and the Stendhal syndrome, if I am correct.
That's right. Yeah, we did Three Argentos. So crazy enough, well, 1 year later, here we are. We got Labyrinth UFC Breakdown in the house. What up, gang? What's going on, Labyrinth? Hope all is well with you, buddy. Chilling like villains here. Second getting to know you question. I know you're a big baseball guy, and I'm a big baseball guy too. I know you're a big Blue Jays guy. Favorite all-time Toronto Blue Jay?
Oh, man.
Tough, I know.
I know, yes. So I start to follow the Blue Jays when I came to Canada because I'm born in Italy. So I would say that the first Jays game that I watched was 2009 when we had Vernon Wells. We had other people that were good hitters too. And so I saw the entire cusp that arrived with Bautista, Donaldson, Martin, so that team that almost made it to the great one. So I should say Alomar because, it's the greatest of all time for a Jays fan. But since I saw it at the stadium, I want to say that for me, Jose Bautista is the greatest Jays of all time.
That's awesome. No, I will never forget the bat flip moment with
man, yeah.
It's an amazing moment, that Jose Bautista bomb against the Rangers. That was the craziest game ever. I remember, I think it was Shin-Soo Choo. He put out the bat, and the Jays catcher throws.
And Martin has hit the and then they score. Yeah.
That was crazy. And then the Rangers just collapse in the following inning, and Batista bombed to cap it. One of the craziest moments ever. I got to ask, this is not a getting to know you question, but Rogers Center, how is it as a stadium? Do you like the stadium?
All right. If you are on third base, it's beautiful. It's enormous, man. Like it doesn't like on TV. It's not when you go live. It's huge. It's like I think it's 60,000 people there.
Wow.
So if you are in the nosebleeds, like I went before, and the sun is shining and the roof is on, man, you're up for a lot of burning in your face. But if you're on the first one and you're like on third base or a little bit on the right side, it's perfect. It's beautiful, and it roars, man. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. I know back in the day they had a WrestleMania or two there. I think WrestleMania 6 and WrestleMania 18 maybe.
I think you're
And
right with 18 with The Rock and Hulk Hogan.
yeah, Hollywood Hulkster, right? And that's
Yeah.
one of the great Mania moments ever when Hulk starts hulking up. I've always wanted to go. I feel like Rogers Center looks like cool. Is it still did it used to be like it was partially a hotel, like you could stay there?
No,
Was
no,
that a
it's
thing?
still attached to a hotel, and if you want,
Oh,
you can dine and you can watch. There's of course a plexiglass, like a big, thick glass, but yeah, you can watch it from there. It's an experience. It's an
definitely
experience.
something I want to do someday. And I know you're coming to the States to go to your very first pro football game, so that's going to be
American
really cool.
football, yeah, for the first time.
Bears game, right? And I know AJ is a big Bears guy.
Lions and Bears, because
Ooh.
basically where I live in Canada, I'm halfway between Toronto and Detroit. So basically, in an hour and a half, I'm in Detroit.
Well, very cool. Okay, that's not a bad ride at all. You'll have a lot of fun, man. Both those fan bases are quite exciting and fun. So I think that's going to be a great, great experience for you. Y'all got Verlander. We were talking about this, Matteo and I. I think we paid him too much, but Matteo said, "Hey, there's a bright side. Kate Upton will be at all the Mets games."
Yeah, for sure. That's that's already Verlander good, good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. I just think they paid him a little too much. 2 years, 86 million for someone in their like early 40s. I think that's a little much, but I hopefully I am proven wrong, but my fingers are crossed here. Slasher Fred says, I think what makes Elm Street 3 a classic is that it was to show Freddy using his victims' weaknesses against them. Sure, the drug addict girl and want to get high. And I mean, there's so many great scenes and one-liners in that movie. I love Elm Street 3. Darren says, John, I'm glad you finally got to see House of Laughing Windows. This was the first time. Thanks to Matteo. This was the first time I watched it. Look forward to both your thoughts. It's top tier for me. Sucks. I meant to say that. I should have. I would like to dedicate this episode to the memory of Ruggero Deodato, one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust, House of the Edge of the Park, The Washing Machine, Body Count, Cut and Run. So many great movies Deodato did. And I know he's not a necessarily, aside from The Washing Machine, I can't think of many Giallos he did. But
No,
I'm a big Deodato fan. Were you, Matteo, a big Deodato guy?
I want to tell you that I am familiar with it, but not that much. But for me, Cannibal Holocaust, it's like a classic.
Yes.
Someone that likes horror, it goes, if you cannot handle it, but it goes further. Like it goes, I want to say that more, maybe like that. It's The Last House on the Left, maybe like the 1970s that goes like further like that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great one, and Deodato is a legend, and I was really sad news to wake up to. I was like, oh man, I was like, I think I'm gonna watch the Deodato documentary. It actually came with the House on the Edge of the Park Blu-ray I got from Severin. Deodato Holocaust, it's called, and it's like a 2-hour documentary on the guy's whole life. So I'm super excited to be watching that one soon. Mernsey Movie Mansion, Triple M. What up, boys? Go Jays, go! Yeah, Mernsey's a Canada guy, just
You
like
got it.
Matteo. So yeah, Jays all the way, man. Vladdy, you gotta love Vladdy. Vladdy's so awesome. I had Vladdy on the fantasy team. Speaking of WrestleMania, during the early 90s, there was a Saturday morning cartoon called Rocky and Roll Wrestling that had animated versions of wrestling figures. I did not know that. That's very interesting. But last getting to know you question before we get into the films. All right. You can go out to dinner with two people, alive or dead. Any two people, alive or dead, in the entertainment field. So this is just exclusive to film. Alive or dead, any two people. Who are you going out to eat with, and where are you going out to eat?
All right. So I want to tell you that being married with kids, I don't go out that often. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to go on a high-end restaurant with whoever I want, with whoever. The restaurant it has to be high-end, and I'm not paying, of course. That's implied.
Okay.
I can drop names, man. There's like, I'm thinking like maybe I should know someone that we don't know a lot about, like Lon Chaney or Boris Karloff, like people that they don't know. But then I'm thinking, no, because I know that one peak, it's for sure Vincent Price, for sure. One, it's the icon. Then I can think, well, maybe I can pair it with someone like Christopher Lee. So we're having a lot of fun, the three of us. But maybe also the maestro. But I don't see it as a very fun person to hang out with. So my second person is going to be Stephen King.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so we're going Vincent Price and Stephen King. And do you have a favorite restaurant around you, like any, or even back home in Italy?
No, just I'm pretty sure some good brandy, some good wine, and we can have fun. The food is not important.
That's true. That's true. It's atmosphere, and it's the two
and who you are
there.
with, right?
Yeah, sure. And I like that you picked one dead, one alive. I think that keeps it interesting for sure. Sometimes people will go, "Oh man, two people I can bring back for a dinner." Like, what do we do here? But I like that. Very cool picks. But yeah, so those are the getting to know you questions. And I figure now, oh, actually, there's one more. Slasher Fred has a question for you. Hey, Matteo, are you referring to Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces, or Lon Chaney Jr.? Yeah, which one?
The first one, the Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, the man of 1,000 faces. Yes, gotta love it. Yeah, so we're gonna get right into this underway with the three Gialli, and I figure we start with the Lucio Fulci joint, then we move on to the House of Laughing Windows and finish up with Sleepless, if that's okay with you. And first, I guess there's no better transition to a film that celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. From the year 1982, this is Lucio Fulci's The New York Ripper. A burned-out New York police detective teams up with a college psychoanalyst to track down a vicious serial killer randomly stalking and killing various young women around New York City. Yes, Matteo, my friend, The New York Ripper. Give me some of your initial thoughts on this one, and what do you think of this one, man?
I want to say that I think that this movie is so raw, in your face, and powerful that I liked it a lot. I think that it shows a New York that we don't see in any other movie. It's very urban New York. It's not Empire State Building, double-decker bus tour kind of New York. It shows you what it really goes down in New York in 1982. Very concrete, like you don't see a lot of open spaces, and I liked it a lot. What do you think, John?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of those great movies in similar vein to like a Maniac or a Basket Case that kind of takes you in a time machine back to New York City at this time era. And it's not the Home Alone 2 New York City that's bright lights and smiles and pizzas and limousines. It's gritty and it's mean. This is a mean-spirited Lucio Fulci film. And of course, he was coming off the legendary Gates of Hell trilogy with the City of Living Dead and the Beyond and the House by the Cemetery. These were the movies he was coming off of. And, to kind of turn the page into this kind of gritty, raw, uncomfortable, sleazy New York giallo, I think that was a really interesting step for him to take in his career. And even though all of Fulci films, a lot of them have blood, a lot of them do have sleaze, I think this one also has a nice style to it that I really wanted to make sure I mentioned here, because there's quite a few interesting kill sequences where he plays a lot with the lighting. And at times it's like,
the bottle in the crotch.
Yes, I mean, bottle in the crotch. It's
Yeah,
amazing how that whole scene is set because it's a red room, and then open the door and it's or no, I'm sorry, it's a green room. Open the
yeah.
door and it's red, and then just bam, bottle to the crotch. She goes down, falls, and the crack of the door kind of makes this beautiful, colorful, vibrant kill scene that I
And
use as the thumbnail. I
and
mean,
for
it's gorgeous.
sorry, Grande, sorry.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
And for saying how in your face this movie is. The bottle on the crotch of this woman, it's right after a peep show that basically we watch like 3 minutes of it, Grande.
Yeah, 3 minutes of sex. Which is, I mean, that's the thing. It almost brings you back to even a Taxi Driver is these peep shows where people would just go into the theater and watch people have sex. It's like, God damn it. And they linger on there. It's like, yep, we're watching this too. We're in the peep show too for 25 cents, you know?
And tape recorder. Why not?
Why
Right?
not? Yeah. Listen to it on the train ride home or something, the
Yeah.
subway home. I don't know. I thought that was funny. But
Yeah.
we also follow Paolo Malco in this film, who was also in The House by the Cemetery. He's like this professor, and then we follow Jack Headley, who plays this cop or lieutenant, and we watch as these two are trying to solve each murder and what's going on, while this killer is calling up and pretending to have a kind of Donald Duck voice, which is the thing that most people remember about this movie. I have to ask, this is the question that burns everybody. Did the Donald Duck voice annoy you, or did you like it, or somewhere in the middle? How do you feel about that Donald Duck voice?
If it wasn't Fulci, it would annoy me. But since I see the duck voice as a recall of how to don't torture a duckling, I'm good with it.
I would have to agree with that too, man.
I,
And I love Don't Touch Your Duckling might be my favorite Fulci.
so I think
But
it's a
this,
recall.
yeah, this I was like, at first I'm like, man, what an interesting like. I guess when you first see this movie, your question is why? Like, why would they do the duck voice? And then when we get to spoilers at the end, you figure it out why. And I thought that was an actually really creative and memorable way to kind of integrate that into a movie. And that's the thing that most people remember. Oh, that's the one with the Donald Duck voice. Like that's when you ask people New York Ripper, that's mainly the thing people kind of bring up. So I thought that was something worth mentioning here. But let's run through some of the kill sequences because there's one that I really enjoy where there's this woman and there's this red herring who he's missing two fingers.
Yeah.
And they have, you think a night of passion. We don't get to see much of that, although she's tied to the bed. And she believes that he is a killer about, halfway through the middle of the night. And this whole sequence where she's trying to get out, I just love that. Didn't you? What did you think of that sequence, man?
I love that sequence. And I think that's the police captain girl, right?
Yes.
Is that it? Yeah. So I love that scene, and I think at the end she escaped, right? She goes out and she finds the real killer in front.
Yes, because the whole time you're thinking he's the killer.
Yeah, and then she runs away and she gets carved like a turkey, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's very gratuitous. That's the
Yeah.
thing with this movie. It's very mean-spirited, very gratuitous with its kills, gore, violence. I mean, there's also another sequence where there's this woman, she's, on her bicycle and accidentally hits into this guy's car, and he says all these mean things to her, and she goes, oh, you know what? I'm going to get him, and she writes on lipstick on the guy's windshield, and then, of course, the Ripper comes to get her, and man, there's this crazy violent stabbing sequence and just crazy blood squibs. It's really uncomfortable. I don't know, like, Fulci may have got more sleazy than this. He may have gone more gory than this in other movies, but I don't know if Fulci ever got grittier than this. Like, would you agree with that? Do you think this is his grittiest effort?
This is the most close to be censored. Like this movie, like you need to be in the right mood, even if you like horror. I think that because especially, I am one of those guys that it's more afraid of something that can happen instead of like Jason, Freddy, like I don't believe that stuff. But a serial killer, like you have to be in the right mood because even if you're like 40, 50 or whatever, you can still go in. This is pretty forward for a movie.
Yes, and that's the thing with the setting of New York City. I mean, someone who I've been to New York City quite a few times in my life, and it kind of, while it's not as gritty as it was then, it's definitely not a place where if you scream for help, people are going to run and help you. It's not. It's everyone's has their own shit going on, their own business, and that's it. I mean, that's New York City, and it could be quite mean spirited and down too. And I like that Fulci is able to capture that throughout this entire movie, that kind of mean New York spirit. And I mean, I agree with you though. It is a required taste, right? An acquired taste where you have to be in the mood for a film like this. If a film like this, or Basket Case, or Taxi Driver, has that exploitation like feel to it. And I like that Fulci kind of adds that style. Triple M says Fulci lives, one of the best. Absolutely, man. The plot sounds like a version of John Carpenter's Halloween. Well, maybe a version of John Carpenter's Halloween and Black Christmas with The Calling and a Donald Duck voice in the city. I don't know, a little bit of a few movies. I definitely need to rewatch New York Ripper. Seems to me what I do remember. This had some brutal kills. Yes, it has some very brutal kills. The two missing fingers charade sounds like very much similar to the villain in the Hitchcock classic, The 39 Steps. Oh, I mean, maybe it was a nod. I don't know. This was Fulci's take on the early 80s slasher boom. It's a perfect mix of slasher and giallo. Fulci must have had a thing about ducks because he did Don't Touch Your Duckling too. Yeah, and that's the thing that people don't realize about Lucio Fulci. He was a big guy to take inspiration from what America was doing. Like you look at 1978, Dawn of the Dead comes out. He comes out with Zombie in 79. You look at House by the Cemetery in 81. The Shining came out in 1980. And then the year of the slashers, 1981, New York Ripper comes out in 1982. And it does have that slasher movie feel to it as well, being in an American setting and all of that stuff. But I do think, for what it's worth, this is a really effective giallo. And I think of these three movies we watched, I felt it had the fastest pace. What do you think about that, man? Do you think this was a fast enough paced movie?
It was very fast paced. And the thing that I find funny is that there's a scene, speaking of exploitation, that also, you said that we're following Paolo and what's her name? And
Jack Headley.
Jack. I think there's a third story as well, Grande. If you think about it, we follow Jane. She's basically the one that goes to the peep show. We're following her to the bar when she does 2 minutes of footsies with someone.
That was bizarre, by the way.
Right? Yeah. Well, and then we follow her because at the end she's one of the victims of the Reaper too. So I will put her as one of the protagonists as well, because we follow her a lot during the movie.
Yeah,
is absolutely the one dying with the dissection of the eye.
Oh man, I mean, amazing.
Right? I think it's that scene, right? That they take that was insane.
Yeah, and I believe it was her in the scene where she might be on the subway. It might have been her character where she's sitting on the subway, and Fulci does this great sequence where she's sitting down and a red herring is over to the right. Yeah. And all of a sudden the lights on the subway go out for 2, 3, 4 seconds. And then when they come back on, he's in a different position. And she kind of turns and see, whoa, like that's not something you see often in a Fulci film. There's a couple of jump scares in this, which I thought, wow, like interesting for Fulci to kind of go there. But like I said, that's where slasher movies kind of were at this time period. They were going for things like that. So I thought that was quite, interesting to see in a Fulci film. Now, I know that the twist ending here kind of rubs people the wrong way, and we can get into spoilers. What do you make of the ending? Do you like the ending? Do you think it was earned? Do you think it's a little over the top? How do you feel about that ending?
For me, Grande, the only problem with this movie, if I can find one, is too many red herrings. There's like the husband of Jane, the police officer, the doctor, and then there's also at the end, spoiler alert, we know that basically in the half of the movie, we find out that one of the victims that survives has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend at the end is the New York Reaper because he had a trauma, basically.
Sure.
Right? So for me, I don't know. It was too complicated, but I like it. I like it. I like it.
I think, like, I'll be honest, that when I first saw this, I didn't guess the killer at all. And usually I'm decent at that, but this one I completely didn't see coming. But I thought it was genius how they kind of came full circle with the Donald Duck thing, right? Because we follow, there's this couple, and their daughter is sick. She's missing a limb. She's in the hospital, and we hear from one of the nurses that she's terminal. She's going to die. And that is why our killer goes around doing the killings of these beautiful, adult grown women, is because his daughter will never be able to do that. She'll never be able to grow up. She'll never become beautiful adult woman. That's never going to happen. So he kind of takes that anger, that rage, and takes it out on all of these beautiful innocent women throughout this film. And I thought that was interesting. And then to go full circle with the Donald Duck thing, is that's what he would do. He would make the voice and tell her the story as a duck, and that's why he calls people his victims and pretends to be the duck. I thought that was really smart, man. I know people say annoying, but I thought that was really intelligent of Fulci, man. And I didn't see that come when I first saw this. I was like, man, that was an intelligent way to do this. And I thought kind of made the killer more interesting, like he's doing this out of the love for someone who's, less fortunate, is going to die in his daughter. And I thought that was really well done here. And the whole finale where, you think maybe it's his wife or slash ex-wife at that point, and then bam, jump scare, and they kind of go at it, and crazy practical gunshot.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
That's a crazy scene. I don't know. I really like this one, man. I think this is an interesting Fulci movie, and a movie that I kind of wish he had done more movies like this in a way.
And good body count, eh?
Yeah. Oh, definitely good body count.
Yeah.
I think this is the best of everything. It's a little bit of everything. It has a little bit of old school giallo, has that style with the playing with the colorful lights and stuff like that. I also think that, the whole psychology at the end is smart. And I don't know. I think this is a really good movie to kind of showcase New York. We see the subways, we see the mean streets, we see the peep shows, we see sex, we see boobs, blood, mayhem, all of that stuff. And I think that really sets this movie apart in his filmography as being the most exploitative of all the movies he ever did. And I think that's a big reason for watching.
Yes, it's raw but with style.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I agree with that. If you had to rate this 1 out of 10, what would you give it?
Okay, Grande, I want to tell you that for ratings, I'm very conservative. Very conservative.
Fair enough.
My prerogative. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'll give it a 6.5.
6.5. Okay. I'll go a little higher. I'll probably go 7 out of 10. I think this is a solid one that definitely needs to be seen. If you're a Fulci fan, definitely don't hold back on this one. I think it's a good departure from the Gates of Hell movies. And then it's like, because you still get that gore, but it's not, supernatural anymore. Now it's old school. We're giallo again. It's a nice, similar to what Argento did around that time. He did Suspiria, he did Inferno, and then bam, I'm going to go back to the giallo and Tenebrae, which was, I think, really good. Such mean-spirited kills, and they are all over the top. The razor blade down the eye and nipple really stands out for me. Wild movie. I agree. Plot of House by the Cemetery involves characters going to a mansion to spend a night, and then chaos ensues. Sounds like a pure Clue movie. Well, it's more of his attempt to make The Shining, I think. That's how I always kind of saw it as. And he even admitted that. He said that was his attempt to one-up Stanley Kubrick, and depending on who you ask. I don't think he did, but it's a good movie. Oh, you do? You like it more than Shining?
No. I mean, like, hard to do to upper Kubrick, right? So especially in Shining. So
next to impossible to do. Yeah. But anything else you want to mention on New York Ripper before we move on?
Sure. I want to say that I'm so glad that in 72 he did Duckling, because I want to tell you that the movies that before he did that are Italian, they're terrible, man. They're like Three Stooges kind of movies. Like he directed those kind of movies. So I'm very happy that his career, because I really like Fulci, and I think the documentary that was out, being Fulci, I think it was called.
Fake for Fulci.
Fake for Fulci was great. Like, if you want to know more about Fulci, that's a great beginning, and then start with the filmography.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think it was just another good step in his career at that time. And then he would take a kind of a detour after that, but then kind of return to it in the latter half of the 80s into the early 90s, and then before his untimely death, movies like Demonia, the Devil's Honey, Cat in the Brain. Those are movies he did towards the end of his career. He kind of came back to that splatter type.
And in Reaper, there is Fulci as well, like on camera, because he's one of the police people at the beginning.
Yes. The fun Fulci
Yeah,
cameo where I'm sitting
yes,
there and 10 minutes in, oh, there he is,
yeah,
Fulci. I love that he would always do these fun kind of cameos in there.
yes.
Fun movie. I like New York Ripper. I definitely think this of the three we're talking about, if you're having a fun night with friends, popcorn, beers, and stuff, this would be the best of the three. I would say it's the most entertaining and kind of quick pace. Whereas the other two, it's definitely more of a sit down and you're gonna breathe this movie in. I think it's a fun watch though. So that is the New York Ripper. Matteo goes 6.5. I go 7. And now we move on to a movie that was a first time watch for me before this show. And I got to thank Matteo for this because it's been a long time coming. This is from the year 1976. This is The House with the Laughing Windows. Stefano, a young restorer, is commissioned to save a controversial mural located in the church of a small, isolated village. Yes, The House with the Laughing Windows. Now, Matteo, I know you said this is one of your favorites, so please, by all means, gush about this one. What do you think of your initial thoughts on this?
Okay, I have so much to say. It's one of my favorite giallos of all time. I think it's hard to watch because, as we were talking before, Grande, there's not a lot of distribution, like DVD wise or Blu-ray wise, of this movie. You can find an Italian version with subtitles, which is you have to be committed because it's a different language with subtitles. So I completely understand. But let's start with the elephant in the room. Do you think this is a giallo, Grande?
I think so, and the reason I think so is this. And Darren is the one who taught me this over anything. This is a small anecdote, but I remember I got the Umberto Lindsay Carol Baker box set. And the first movie I watched on it wasn't your classic, typical black glove killer giallo film. It wasn't at all. This isn't that style of film, the black glove killer and sleaze and over the top violence. There's not. It's not really any of those things. There's maybe 3 kills throughout the film. There is a sex scene, but it's not as sleazy as a New York Ripper. I think this is a giallo that is very much reliant on the dreamlike atmosphere, building tension. There are some red herrings, but I think this is such a horse of a different color, and I'm really happy you introduced me to this one. So I say giallo for sure. What do you think?
No, I think it's a giallo too, but the body count of 3, you're completely right. It's very low.
It
And
is.
and other than one scene, we don't see actually the real scene because one body is found in the river and the other one jump out of the window. So we only see one body like flying out. The only death that we see is the one at the end, basically.
Yeah.
So
It's a total change in tone from where we just were, right? We're a New York Ripper, sleaze and gore and violence and over the top, people getting their eyes and gutted. That's
no
not this type
gloves,
of
right?
movie.
There's no glove killer either in the Laughing Windows.
Not at all. And I think that's kind of what I liked about it is how different it was as opposed to, the typical giallo. And I think that a lot of that probably had to do with the director, Pupi Avati, who I thought he did a wonderful job with this film. I wish there'd be an HD version because I watched it on a rough standard dish. I think this is a beautiful looking film, especially, if a proper HD release came out of this.
Photography wise, like cinematography wise, is awesome.
Oh, it's gorgeous, man. And it's kind of the yellow filters that they use in some scenes, like we're on the boat. I thought that was really pretty to look at personally.
I
But
mean, this movie is very
yeah,
Italian. Like, you know what
yes.
I mean? This is like very like you can only do that kind of movie there. I give you a bit of a history, okay? Like of like 2 different movies so you understand. There's 2 giallos, on my opinion, that you can only do it in Italy. One is Laughing Windows and one is Duckling. We all go back there, but Duckling is such an Italian movie. You can only find those characters, those stories in the rural south of Italy. Like
Yeah.
the people trying to kill the killer, like the scene with the woman that gets like clobbered by a club of people. And the same is with this movie in the north of Italy where it's shot. They don't take outsiders very well to begin with. Like the outsider is seen like someone that doesn't have to know anything about the community. And also that part of Italy, it's a swamp. It's a marsh. So if you notice in the movie, you see a fridge full of snails.
Yeah.
So the people ask themselves, what's that all about? That's
I did.
so I'll tell you, that's what they eat. So because they are in a swamp, so basically they eat eels, frogs, and snails. Because that's, it's 1976, and that's the part of Italy. You don't have a supermarket or McDonald's or stuff. So we're talking still of a very close community. So I think that Stefano, that is an art restorer and get plopped basically there in that community, that we will find out that is a cursed community. So you see this guy that is trying to basically in a church restoring a fresco that is the fresco of San Sebastian that was killed with arrows, but in this case it has daggers instead of arrows. And there's these two female figures that they're doing the job, right? So more he knows, more he discovered the fresco, more he knows about this painter that is called Buono Legnani, that he basically was a painter, an odd painter with an odd family. So if you want to go ahead, Grande, and do the synopsis and like the going ahead more of the movie, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. No, and you're introduced to this kind of mystery, right? And we see this painter, this abstract painter, and there's a really image that is still in my brain is this picture of it's a woman's body, but they say that he had no one to paint, so he put his own head on it, which I thought was creepy, right? Just like weird. Like, what the heck are you doing, my guy? Very odd. And we learn about, like you said, these two women that would help him, and they were his sisters, and he all these years ago set himself on fire, ran into the woods, and they never found the body. He allegedly died. He's apparently dead. Alleged. They keep beating that into your head. And I think, Darren mentioned in the comments here that the atmosphere and the sense of dread is second to none. I agree. I think that's what this movie brings to the table is the atmosphere, the sense of dread, that it's just uncomfortable the entire time. And even, we open the fridge of snails, right? And then he has sex with this woman who he's known maybe a day. She's like, oh, you can stay with me? Sure. Opens the snails, and the next scene they're in bed. I'm like, well, goddamn, that's just a real quick, like, hey, how you doing? You got snails? Let's have sex, like,
right? I want to say that doesn't happen in Italy all the time. Don't think that that's the normal. But I can see Stefano, like, basically he's alone, right? So yes. He's looking for companionship, and he slept with the two teachers of the town, right? And I want to say that Italian teachers are not like that. I never experienced that in my life. So I don't know which kind of school they were going, but yeah, it never happened to me, unfortunately.
Me neither. I thought that stuff was amazing though. Like it really, like how to kind of integrate your lead character into this setting where they are uncomfortable. And it is I thought it was a nice looking little town. I thought it was really nice to be like in the back of my head, oh man, some place I'd like to visit. But how uncomfortable everyone around him is making him feeling. That's the true horror of this horror movie to me, is the fish out of water into this brand new town where he feels like there's eyes on him no matter where he goes. And the pinnacle of that, of course, is the House of the Laughing Windows, which I thought was not only a great title for a movie, but the actual, when you see the building with these kind of giant, bright, smiling lips on the windows, I didn't think that was actually going to be in the movie like that. I was like, wow, like that is a insane visual, like really cool cinematography shot. But I love how this mystery kind of plays out. And honestly, man, it takes some twists and turns. And by the ending, I thought it was quite shocking. But what are some of your other thoughts?
Go a little bit more on the story.
Of course. Yeah, there's tons of story here.
So basically, after Stefano starts doing the fresco, he meets this school teacher, Francesca. And because there's, as you said, fish out of water, they basically kick him out of the hotel that he was staying.
Yeah.
Right after his friend that brought him there to do the fresco said, listen, I have to tell you a secret, but not here in the restaurant. So you know that guy's going to get killed.
Sure.
So the scene after, the guy is basically thrown out of the window, and we see a figure in the background. So he stays in a mansion that there's a disabled person living there, an old lady. And also there is this sleazy village idiot named Lidio that is
Oh,
the
he
altar
was
boy,
crazy.
right?
Lidio was nuts.
The altar boy for the church that the fresco is in, and also for this lady that is on a bed rest. So in this house, he finds a tape recorder of the painter, and the painter is there basically in a delirium. He's saying, "Oh, my colors! I love my colors. They're like red. They're like syphilis." It's like, great, like, okay, that's what I'm into. Uh, so after he talks with the drunk of the town, which is the only survivor of these rituals that we find out that are made. So these rituals are made for the painter to get the inspiration, and they're done by the two sisters that we don't know if they're alive or dead. And he finds out also that the house that they were living with, the two sisters and the painter, is this house of the laughing windows. And when he goes there with the drunk, this house is a graveyard. They basically find bones everywhere. And I found there, I don't know if you found the same feeling, that Grande, that after the house with the laughing windows, you can see that basically the walls are closing on Stefano, right? Because like he's getting very close to figure it out what's going on.
Sure, the closer you get to the truth, the closer you get to the mayhem, right? And then we're finding all these bones with these tiny little shovels, which I thought was pretty funny. I was like, God damn, give them a real shovel here to find some of these bones. And the whole idea of he goes to the cops at one point, they don't believe him, and he's trying to prove it to them. I mean, that's insane too. When you're the fish out of water, and then I've discovered the truth. You kind of go to X, Y, and Z, and nobody believes you. I
No.
mean,
Did you find that that the movie was giving you a little bit of a dreamscape kind of thing? Because there's a section of 30 minutes that you're like, is Stefano losing his mind, or they're trying to like frame him? Because like he sees things and then they're not there. Even when they kill Francesca, which she gets sacrificed, like basically they do the
chain
sacrifice
her
of
up.
her. Yeah, they chain her and they start dagging her. He founds her, and then he goes to the police, comes back, and everything is clean. Like, and you're like, maybe he's losing his mind, right?
Sure, I definitely got that, and because I think the nightmare quality of this movie makes you feel like that. Like you don't necessarily know what is or isn't real. There are a couple scenes, like the opening scene. It's in this. It looks like to me, it looked like a yellowish filter. Well, we get the opening titles and you hear the my colors, yellows and reds, and all of this. And there are certain sequences in the film where you're like, damn, I don't know, is this real? Is this reality or is this a dream? And I thought that the film really did a good job at making me on ease and kind of like, wait a minute, what did this really happen? Is he going crazy? I kind of didn't think so. I was like, man, there's something going on in this head. It's just everybody's just too weird. But I didn't think that weird. You know what I mean? But I thought, just the visual of this woman kind of chained up and they're just torturing her as he watches. Creepy, man. Just like really unsettling. It's not gratuitous. You don't see a ton of gore,
No,
but it's the
no,
idea lands home for me. I thought that was truly horrific.
because basically, when after Francesca gets killed, he goes to the police, come back, and everything is clean. There's no blood. By the way, the color of blood in this movie, I like it a lot. It's like very paint-like,
Yes.
which has to do with the story. And so after that, he's looking for cleaning supplies. Who's using big cleaning supplies, right? So he goes to the cleaning supply shop, and he said, "Oh, I give it to everybody," but he sees the idiot village going back to the big mansion that he was where Francesca was killed, and he found the idiot tied up. And there's one of the sisters that is showing Stefano that they're doing this for the brother that is basically inside a wardrobe.
Yeah.
He keep in formaldehyde. And you're like, what the fuck? Like I wasn't, and you only see one sister. The other sister, they only see the back. So you don't know who the other sister is. And while they're doing this, they're not very welcoming because one of the sisters stab him in the guts.
Yeah. And then he
So
goes on a run.
yes, but I leave the twist to you, please. You go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because this was a first time watch for me. So this twist, I warn you people, this was crazy. He gets a stab to the stomach. He runs out. They're chasing him, whatever. He gets to, I think he's in the House of the Laughing Windows, and or he might be back in the church. I forget which one it is, but
He
he's
goes to town and nobody helps him.
no,
Nobody
not
helps
at all.
him. Like bleeding. And I was like, no, who cares? We don't want to deal with the sisters, right? So we don't do this stuff. And then he goes to the church where the
Yeah, he
priest.
goes to the church after this, and it is revealed that the other sister is a priest, is the male priest. And how you figure this out? The priest whips out his yits, and all of a sudden the priest is a woman who has yits, and I am the sister. I was like, what? Like, I got off my couch and just was like, what the fuck? Like, this is nuts, man. The priest has yits all of a sudden. Like, oh my God, just surreal.
To put salt in the wounds, Pupi Avati, what does he do? The only last thing that you see is the face of Stefano that is like grossed out, almost dead,
In shock.
shocked, but happy at the same time because he finally figured it out what's going on. You hear the police sirens coming, and back a hand, credits. So, and you're like, what? That's the end, right? So it's the end is it makes you think for 5 minutes.
It's very, and it's one of those, when it ended, I watched the credits and you hear the laughing, right? The House of Laughing Windows. And I kind of sat there, I'm like, man, what the hell? Like, what a fever dream to end this movie on, where we don't know whose hand grabbed him. We don't know. And we don't have to know. It doesn't mean or make any difference what it was. It's just kind of a scary, lasting nightmare image. It's almost like a nightmare. There's no reason for me to have a nightmare. There's no logic to it, but it's scary, and it kind of leaves you with that unsettling feeling, and you're thinking about it as the credits roll. I tell you one thing, I started thinking, I was like, did they give that priest like that? I didn't see coming at all. I was like, all of a sudden, my man had boobs. I'm like, what the heck? Like, it blew my mind. I was like so flabbergasted by that, but I thought that was a really good, impactful way to end your film. Like, kind of just a very chilling feeling as you leave the screen. And I think effective horror movies do that, man. And I will be honest with you, I think the reason that people put this Giallo at the top is because it's one of very few Giallo films where I ever leave the screening feeling like that. I think a lot of Giallos, they either end where the killer is found out, they kill him, we all survive, or the killer prevails. There's none, dare I say, that I've seen that ends quite like this.
No.
Where it's like, whoa, like, what the hell did I just watch? I think it's that feeling that really sets this movie apart from just any other Giallo for me. But what do you think, man? What would make, was that a big reason this would be one of your top Gialli?
I think that cinematography-wise, color-wise, the scope of the movie is beautiful. It's like that yellow, and like the locations, they're beautiful as well. He's a great director, Pupi Avati. This is one of the only Giallo. He did another like couple of horror-ish movie at the beginning, but he does comedies, but like sort of a Wes Anderson kind of comedies, like that sophisticated humor, not like farts and burps kind of comedies, more sophisticated comedies.
Sure.
So I really like, because I think that Pupi is a very good director, and the ending, leaving it like that as open. For me, Stefano says bye-bye. For me, Stefano is done.
Oh, okay? He's toast.
He's done. And one thing that I always thought about that hand, don't laugh, Grande, but the opinion that I have of Italian is that they are a little bit, like we deal with what we have, right? It's not Hollywood. So for me, that hand, I thought it's like the assistant cameraman that like puts this hand by mistake there, and Pupi goes, "Hey, you're in the shot." So I think that he just left it there because he was
leave it in.
He's like, leave it in. That's beautiful. So I think that hand doesn't have any more of a big sense, let's say.
But I hope it doesn't. I think that's the perfect way to end it. It's just a great kind of like Wow, as you leave the I thought that was a really, really impactful way to end this movie. I thought it was quite well done. I think and you know, I'll be honest, when as soon as it ended, I looked up the director because I wanted to know if he had done more horror, and he really didn't. He made a movie called Zetter, that which
At
is
the
like a
beginning,
apparently
like
an abstract zombie
before
film.
Windows, yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. So I don't know. I appreciated the different take, right? Because I've seen an infinite amount of Lindsay Giallos or Argento Giallos or Fulci Giallos. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. Sergio Martino Giallos. I had never seen a Giallo quite like this, so I really appreciated the different take. And I think that most of the credit goes to the director for that. Now, it is a really well written film too. Like I love the story, and of course, Pupi also helped write the screenplay along with two other people, Antonio Avati and Gianna Cavina. I thought this was a really well written film overall.
One is the brother, and the other one, Gianni Cavina, he's the drunk.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that at all.
And
Oh.
survivor, because he had an encounter with the sisters before, right? Remember, he said they
Sure,
almost
yeah.
died, right? Yeah.
That's I didn't know he wrote the movie too. That is a really cool fun fact. Absolutely, man. That is
And I
very,
want
very
to tell you, because I have the luck, to see Argento's interview in Italian, Avati in Italian, Fulci in Italian, like that they're not subtitles, right? So I know more than, I want to say, like the average, because I have the privilege to know their language, right?
sure.
So for this movie, I'll tell you that the anecdote that he said, the idea that he had is that when he was in Bologna, which is like a northern city, there was a priest that was reanimated from the coffin. They had to reanimate the body, and basically they found the body of a woman in it.
Oh my god.
So basically, the legend is that if you were not good, the woman priest is gonna come and get you. It became like a boogeyman. So this idea inspired the Laughing Windows because of the twist at the end, right? So the idea was the priest as a woman. So that's the how we get it.
Wow. See, now I'm so happy you know that, and not even just you're saying because you're Italian, you got to see the interviews. There should be a special edition of this movie out where I could watch the interviews with subtitles. I mean, it's that good of a movie. I'm not sure is Pupi Avati still with us? Is he still alive?
He's still with us. He's like 82, 83, I think. Still
I
keeping.
would love to hear an interview with him, like just like about this movie, because this is a really like a horse of a different color, but I mean that in the best of ways. I really
Yeah.
thought this was a fantastic film. Kubrick lovers in the house. Hey, Grande, happy New Year. What's going on? He says, hello, Matteo. The title, The House with the Laughing Windows, like it would have been a comedy film instead of a serious horror movie. It is anything but a comedy film. I don't, aside from maybe the priest twist at the end, there's not a laugh in here. This is a really drab film. It's dreadful. It's a
I
really
agree with Darren. Like close. It's close. It's close.
I think it's damn good, man. I really enjoy it. Oh, thank you. The atmosphere and sense of dread is second to none. Probably one of the creepiest endings ever made. I would have to agree with that as well. This film sounds great. Added it to the never-ending watch list. Of course, Triple M. You got to always be adding to the watch list. Honky Digital is here. Hello, Granny. Thanks for welcoming into your graveyard. Haha, dude. Absolutely, anytime. The trope of the people not taking kindly to strangers seems to be a very famous trope because it's used in movies like An American Werewolf in London. I always think Lovecraft when I think of that type of story. Dreamscape came out the same time as Elm Street did. In the film, there's a snake in the character, and you look at the poster of Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a snake in it. Oh, wow. Okay. Didn't even think of that. Still can't. I would agree, Darren. Where's the Blu-ray of this? Where's the. I'm kind of jealous that there's not a Region 1 release of this. I think this is a movie that is damn deserving of it. Maybe one day it will get it. I don't know if maybe it's rights issues or just lack of being known, because I had heard about it for years, but it wasn't really until you suggested it that I was like, you know what? Finally got an excuse to watch this. And I'm very happy I did. I thought this was a damn good movie. If you had to rate it out of 10, what would you give it?
All right. Fasten your seatbelts.
I think I know.
9.
9? Wow, I thought you were going 10.
No, I told you about the being conservative. 9. 9.
9. Okay. I'm gonna go up with a solid 8 for me. I really like this one. My only issue, I do think of these three that we watched, I would say it was the one that was the slowest paced. but it's all earned by the end, and that's the style this is, right? It's not, like I said, it's not the Black Glove Killer. You're not going to get sleaze. It's really an abstract giallo, but that's kind of a metaphor for the movie. The movie is about an abstract painter
Yeah,
and all of these weird things that go on, and weird twists and red herrings and uncomfortable feelings. I think this is a really, really good movie. I don't know if I'd say masterpiece for me, but I would agree with you both. I think it's close. I think it's like one of those. It's definitely a hidden gem because not
yeah,
a lot of people talk about this movie, and I think more people should. I think maybe the lack of exposure is the reason why. It's just one of those movies that kind of fell between the cracks, and that's unfortunate because there's a lot of Giallos I've seen that are not half as good as this that
no.
are known. Kind of a
Uh,
shame, but
I think that I know I always go there, but for me, like it's close to be as good as Duckling, as good as Torso, like those Giallos, like those Deep Red. For me, it's up here. Like that's the masterpiece, right? That's
yes.
the blueprint. But it's very close for me.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely in the running. Like I would agree, Deep Red's the best Giallo ever made. I
Yeah,
100% agree with that. But this is one that, like, I would love. I definitely would put in my top 10. I think it's a top 10 Giallo I've ever seen. I thought it was really, really good, really solid all around. And yeah, no, it makes me definitely want to check out more from the director. And I don't know. The thing with Giallo is you can really never run out and kind of find all these hidden gem movies along the way. Like I know Arrow releases 3 Giallo sets where they do, I think they've done 4 or 5 box sets at this point. Really cool to kind of dip into all these different kind of obscure Giallos that I don't know. Because we've all seen Torso, we've all seen Deep Red, and we know a lot of the mainstream ones, but it's fun to watch ones that are lesser talked about. And this is one that definitely I'm happy that you recommended. So I,
yeah.
I went 8, Matteo went 9. That is The House with the Laughing Windows. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is free on YouTube to watch with subtitles, so that's cool enough. But going on to our final film of the evening, this one I actually own here on this cool Scorpion release Blu-ray. It is from the year 2001 from the maestro, Mr. Dario Argento. This is Sleepless. A retired police detective and his young amateur sleuth team up to find a serial killer who's resumed the killing spree in Turin, Italy, after a 7-year period. Sorry if I botched that, Matteo. I apologize. But
No.
this is Sleepless from 2001. Really, I'm happy that we were talking about this one too, because this has got to be one of the least talked about Dario Argento movies. Thoughts on this one? Do you remember when you first watched this?
I did. I did. 2001. I was pretty old, like oldish, but I was 18, 20, I think. And yeah, I do remember it. I really liked it. There is some stuff in the Italian that is different than the English. I'm gonna let you know later. But
Ooh.
yeah, and I think that I was losing interest in Argento at that time because this comes after the flop of the Phantom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're like, my hope with you, it's getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and then you watch Sleepless, and you're like, welcome back, maestro. You're like, okay, this is what you need to do. Like this is up your alley. I loved it. I think it was a great comeback for Giallo for Dario.
I love it too. I would have to agree wholeheartedly. And you're right. Like, if you look at the period of Argento coming up to this, we had Trauma in 1993, which a lot of people consider to be less and less lackluster, I guess, because it was the first film he had shot entirely in America, and people felt that it was kind of a betrayal of what he did. Then you get Stenhall, which I find to be super underrated. I love Stenhall. Me and Darren reviewed it on the show. We had I think a really nice discussion on it. I love that film. But then you're right, the crash and burn known as Phantom of the Opera. In my opinion, to that point, the first truly awful Argento film all around. I mean, I hate that movie. I think Scorpion Releasing also did a Blu-ray of that, and I passed. I'm not. I got the card player. I got this. I did not get Phantom of the Opera. It's a bad film.
See, do
But
the Laughing Windows and don't do Phantom.
no,
Right?
no.
Go to a different project.
Yeah, the Phantom of the Opera has a fucking beautiful Blu-ray special edition. House of Life Windows, nothing.
Nothing.
Region 2 DVD with no
Yeah.
features. Bizarre. But
Exactly.
this movie was a really good return to form for Dario Argento. He had took a 3-year hiatus from 1998 to 2001. And the first thing that I really think jumps out about this movie is the look of this movie. This Blu-ray is tremendous. And I see Mernsy saying here, that's a really sweet copy, Grande. Thank you. Agreed. Don't hear this one mentioned very often. It's a great giallo. I agree. The look of this movie is fantastic. And I had to look up who the cinematographer was. It was also the guy who worked with Dario Argento in a little movie called Opera. So cool enough, all these years later, I think 13, 14 years later, they worked together again on this movie. And man, I thought visually this is a beautiful film to look at. And I think it's a great return to form. And right off the bat, to me, this movie sets a pace that is just tremendous. We have an opening scene where this child, his mother has been murdered. We are introduced to Max von Sydow, who's awesome to see in this type of movie. It's like surreal that he did it. Um, he kind of says to this kid, listen, I'll find the killer of your mother, even if it takes the rest of my life. We fast forward all these years later. And of course, we have this prostitute sleeping with a man who needs quite a few of the blue pills to get it up. And we get this amazing train sequence, which absolutely to me is the highlight of this movie. And if you were ever to do a highlight reel of Dario Argento cinema, that train sequence to me is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. What did you think of that train sequence, Matteo?
I love it. I think it's so stylish how it's shot, and like the hiding and the lighting and the weather, the soundtrack. It's all perfect. One defect for me, Grande, I wouldn't wait maybe 10-15 minutes to put that chase, because for me it's too close. You're getting the higher, like the high part of the movie too close to the beginning, like, because that scene is the high of the movie, right? Like, as
Sure.
pace and everything else. So that's my only defect with that scene. It's too
And it's
early.
funny because Dario argued with the producer about what to do. The producer wanted it at the beginning, Dario wanted it at the end, and those kind of styles clashed. And he said, "Fine, we'll do it at the beginning." And then apparently, when the finally movie premiered, the producer walked up and said, "Hey, man, you were kind of right. I think we should have done it at the end." And God damn it, I thought that was funny, but I will say this. I agree with you. It is the highlight of the movie, and it is too close to the beginning. I totally agree with that. But I do think, for what it's worth, that's a great way to get me invested in your film, right? Like we're 20 minutes in and I'm on the edge of my seat already. I'm like, wow, like where are you going to go? And I don't think the movie gets slow or lets down any of its pace. I think the kills and all this are great. And this is a movie really where he brought back almost everybody he had worked with in the past, in movies like Deep Red. Of course, Goblin comes back to do the soundtrack. I think they do a wonderful job here.
Amazing,
You have
amazing soundtrack.
yeah, you have Sergio Stivoletti doing the amazing practical effects. I mean, just incredible gore sequences, and violence, just really mean spirited kills and crazy gore. You have, I think, Franco Ferrini, who he wrote a ton of Argento, co-written a bunch of Argento stuff. But I like the whole kind of story here, and I like the characters. I like Max von Sydow and the lead kind of going back and forth all these years later. This little kid growing up, trying to figure out who killed his mother, and I don't know. I thought this one is really one of those movies where Argento was the star for me, though. Like all the things he did with the camera in this film and sequencing in this film, I thought were just tremendous. It's not just the train sequence. There's the beer sequence. There's the harp sequence with always shot by the feet, right? You have all these feet going by. I thought that was amazing. I was like,
That was
man,
an awesome scene. The carpet scene. It's amazing. It's a genius idea to shot something like that, just showing the feet, and then the feet at the end of the girl that gets basically choked and decapitated, and you see just the little feet going like this. That's genius scene. And I think you're right. I think that Argento, it is the star. I think that Dario, it's a little bit of a star itself, so that's why Max von Sydow is not the protagonist, because he
sure.
still want to be the protagonist of the movie with the shot and the story. I really like Max von Sydow. I like him a lot. I don't know if you've seen the movie. It's very bad. The story is awesome, but the movie it's awful. Needful Things. I don't
I
know
have
if you have.
not.
Okay. And in The Exorcist, but these it's like a comeback because his interpretation is very good. And go ahead.
Sure. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's really cool to see a familiar face in a movie like this, an Argento movie like this. And I do like that he's not the lead. I like our lead that we follow. I think he's very interesting. We're introduced to some of his friends. He has a love interest in the film who, I don't know about you, this harp player here on the cover. Part of me thinks that that was supposed to be Dario Argento, and maybe she was filming something else at the time because she has very Dario Argento look to her. Do you think that? Or I watch it, I'm like,
I think
think
you're
it's the poor
probably
man's
right.
Asia.
And Chiara Caselli, which is Gloria, I find her flat compared to the rest of the cast. I think the rest of the cast, Giacomo, his friend Lorenzo, and his father, are very good actors. Like, are very good. But
Yeah, and
her,
his
she falls
father is
flat.
Gabriel Labia, correct? From movies like Deep Red, Inferno. I think
Yeah, oh,
Gabriel Labia.
he's Carlo, right? In Deep Red.
Yes, and
Yes,
funny enough, now when I did this, I looked because I was curious about Pupi Avati's filmography. He worked with Pupi Avati in Zetter. He's in Zetter as well. So that's so crazy. I was like, wow, that's so crazy. We're going to be talking about two movies and he was involved with both directors. That was quite something. But I agree, she was flat. She's a pretty woman, but I don't think I think Asia would have been much better in the role. I don't know why they didn't
I'm not a
initially get
fan of
her
Asia, to be honest.
as an actress or a person or
Yeah,
both.
Italian, her voice is annoying, but like annoying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
So,
I could see that.
so
I think
I'm
she's
not
beautiful, though. I will say that.
yes, she is, but
Yeah,
not a fan.
I could totally understand. No, I don't know. I saw her and I was like, Asia, because maybe she was like, oh, Phantom of the Opera. I'm getting away from my dad. I don't know what this guy's doing now. Maybe
Let's
she's
get
hit
out of
screw
here
it.
before it's too late, right?
Yeah. But I thought was cool is she wrote the little nursery rhyme used in this movie.
Yes.
There's of course this little nursery rhyme about animals on a farm. And Asia wrote the little nursery rhyme. I thought that was cool to kind of have her involved creatively. I know this was initially going to be, they wanted it to be a sequel to Stenhall Syndrome, and they were going to call it Black Glasses, which is a movie that Argento just directed last year. That movie finally came to light. And then The Card Player was going to be a sequel to Stenhall. Like they wanted to do that sequel for a long time. And they also at this time were talking about doing the third of the Three Mothers. They wanted to do the Mother of Tears. And Argento said, no, let me go back old school. Let me go back to what got me to the dance in an old school giallo. And I think this is a kind of an Argento movie where I would say this is the best of. Like there are elements in here that that remind me of Deep Red, right? The woman getting her face smashed against the wall. That's also in Deep Red. The teeth falling out. There are the things with the animals, of course, Four Flies on Gray Velvet, and even some Cat O' Nine in there. You see elements and specs of what he did in his career, and then it's kind of all integrated to one movie here, and I thought that was interesting. And then you throw Goblin in to do the score, you throw Stivoletti in to do the special effects. I think you got a really grandiose Argento movie for me, and I one that I love.
I saw also, I have to say, the Turin, it's a very gothic Italian city. Like, it really helps the location of Turin. Like, that city, it's dark. And I love how you show how Italy has not changed. 1983, 2000, it still looks like 1983. Like, it's the same thing. It's such an 80s and 90s movie, even if it's shot in the 2000s. And also, one other thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you noticed this at the end, one of the fake revelations of of Gabriele Lavia, of the
Yeah.
father, it's very Tenebrae-like,
Yes, totally.
right? The first shot that it's not moving, and the guy comes up like, instead of behind a person like in Tenebrae, he comes up to the shot that is already there. So I found that very Argento. So
Yes, it's funny. It's like he took like things he learned along the way and went, okay, I'm going to apply them all here because it really is a throwback film. And you're right, it doesn't feel 2001. You look at horror overall, not just in Italy, but in the entire world at that time period, horror has really moved past the giallo at that point. I mean, there really weren't too many of them coming out. I mean, American Psycho in the States and Final Destination in the States, and all these Japanese J-horror films, the Ju-on the Curse and Ju-on the Grudge and Ringu. That was the stuff that was dominating. So for Argento to kind of make this throwback film here and integrate it right in the middle of that period, I thought was really cool, because it's like, this is something different from what's coming out in the whole horror market right now. And it's cool to kind of go back and have a throwback with Dario. I thought that was, a cool idea for a movie here to do this. Now here's a question in general. A lot of people say this is the last great Argento film. Two-part question. So number one, do you agree with that? And number two, what do you think happened if you do think this was the last great Argento?
Oof, what a question, Grande.
Tough, right?
Yeah, big time. I think that, yes, after I don't want to say that this is the last decent. I want to say that if we calculate Argento like a pinnacle going up and down and up and down, I want to say that the pin went up in the 80s and the 70s, right?
Sure.
Then it went down in 2001. It did a spike again, and then I think we never get that spike that higher after Sleepless. But I don't want to say that is like, yeah, I don't want to spit on Argento. I don't feel like I have too much respect.
I hear that completely. I don't know. Like, I would say this is one of the last really good ones, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't like Mother of Tears. And I couldn't believe when I watched The Card Player, I thought I was going to hate it. And I actually kind of found merit in The Card Player. Not a great movie by any means. It's no Deep Red, Tenebrae. It's nothing even close, but a movie that I definitely had fun with. And I didn't even mind his two Masters of Horror stories, Jennifer and Peltz. I thought both of those were quite good. But a lot of people seem to say that do recognize this movie's worth, which it's Darren was saying right here, it's arguably his most underrated. I would agree with that. I mean, people don't talk about, I would say this, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, they don't get the talk like a lot of other Argento movies do. But a lot of people that do put this over say it is the last great Argento. Maybe it is. I just don't know really what happened. Maybe it's a part of, you were saying how he had hit his pinnacle in the 70s and the 80s. That's when he was young. That's when he was in his youth. That's when he was in his prime. And obviously your birthday at 25 years old is going to be a lot more fun than it is at 55 to 60 years old. That's just kind of a law of averages. So maybe that's the thing that happened. It's just got a little old, and maybe some of the techniques and whatever passed him by. But I don't know. I still don't think, I think of all of these directors, right? Of John Carpenter, George Romero, Wes Craven. I think it took the longest for Argento to kind of have that fall off period as opposed to any of the other ones. Because, I don't think John Carpenter made a movie anywhere close to 2001 as good as a Sleepless.
Oh.
Romero, I don't think any of them came even close, So this is a movie that I kind of hold in that high regard. And I really appreciate for what it did for not just, horror at the time, but Argento's career. It was a really nice kind of throwback to all these films of yesteryear from his pinnacle.
I don't want to go philosophical on it, but I think that Argento lacked a little bit of evolution. I think that at a certain point he should have, he stayed very, very faithful to his roots. He never went in a different direction. And when he did, he always came back. He never stuck with the new thing, right? So I think that if you don't evolve, unfortunately, it's evolution, you perish. If you have U2 and Madonna that stays 40 years on the top of the charts, it's because they evolve with the music, right? They go and different. They don't stay the same. I think that Argento really stayed very faithful to his roots, and that damaged his career instead of going different.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It's like he never really grew, right? Because if you look at it, he makes the Three Animals trilogy. He branches out into Suspiria and makes arguably the most amazing movie, horror movie wise ever. I mean, love Suspiria. Inferno, it's a step down. It didn't go exactly the way. I know he's not a big fan of Inferno. Okay, I want to go back to Tenebrae. Cool. Okay, Tenebrae, great return to form. That's basically, I would say Tenebrae is the 80s version of this, where it's the return to form movie. And then okay, let me try Phenomena, which is I think it's one of my favorite Argento films. I love it. The kind of, again, dreamsicle and Jennifer Connelly, Donald Pleasance. I mean, the heavy metal music and
Yeah.
Flash of the Blade, amazing. Um, I agree with you. I don't know how much he really ever grew. Right?
Yes,
Like maybe I have you seen Jennifer, his Masters of Horror episode?
of course I have.
I think that would have been something interesting to go into. Talk about the horrors of sexuality. Like,
Yes.
do something more along those lines, because sexuality wasn't something that was, maybe a theme of Argento's some of his films, but not something they ever really made a movie on other than Jennifer. I think that would have been an interesting direction to take. But maybe, what happens? Maybe it's just like he gets so comfortable, right? Like how many westerns did John Ford make? Argento probably went, "Hey, fuck it, I'm the Jolly guy, so I'm gonna make more and more Giallo." So I don't know. Maybe you're right. I mean, maybe that's why it crippled him to stay in the same comfortable state. But I still think he made a lot of good stuff.
Do we want to go through the synopsis of Speed?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm sorry. We got off on a little bit of a tangent.
No,
Here we get this.
I know the maestro. If we talk about it, we go right. Yeah,
It happens. It happens. Are you referring to? No, we are talking about the 1998 Ozzy Argento Phantom of the Opera, and who
we
who
will
was
never
the
offend
Phantom?
that.
It's awful. It's an awful piece of shit movie. Sleep is probably Argento's one of his most underrated. I would have to agree. What I miss? AJ's in the house. You missed New York Ripper and House of Laughing Windows. We both highly recommend both. Really, really awesome movies. Mernsey saying AJ's in the house. Hey, people sleep on Sleepless. See what I did there? We see what you did there, buddy. Do you like Hitchcock? 2005 is not a bad film either. It suffers with budget and was a TV film, I believe, but worth checking out. I agree. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I think the TV standard definitely did hurt it. And it's a movie that I would say is like I would watch almost any of the ones I mentioned over. Like I would watch Mother of Tears over that. But it's not a bad movie. It's definitely not. Once you
No,
get to Giallo and Dracula,
that's
that's
not
when
really
that's
bad.
when it all went down for me for the Maestro. But yeah, I'm sorry. Let's get back into Sleep. As I apologize for the tangent. What did you think of the kind of mystery of this movie? And was this one? This is one where I rarely get these, but I guessed right. I guessed the killer in this one. I don't know if you did or had any suspicion.
I No, I didn't get it because Argento, he's a cheater. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a cheater because during the movie the killer poisoned itself. So you kind of eliminate him from the red herrings, and then he comes back. How he comes back, I love it. I love the way that they explain the different radius of the homicides, and also the nursery rhyme and why the person has stopped killing for 7 years. I love all that reason too. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. They don't hear it. He's somewhere else doing the same thing, but he's not in Turin. So, that nursery rhyme is done. But no, I'm a little upset with Argento about the cheating, yes. But other than that,
I hear that. I'll be honest, because I from the get go I'm like, okay, there's something up about this guy, and I thought the inhaler thing. I was like, man. And then when he survived it, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, he usually if he's innocent, that character dies there. I was like, he
yeah,
survived this, and again, the way Argento shoots that is just masterful. I love we had people at a bar talking, whatever, drinking, and he only shoots the beer glasses as the commotion goes on. One of them is poisoned. Oh, he drank that glass that was meant for me. All that confusion, and I could totally see how it would misdirect you. I agree. Argento's cheating there for sure. And a night where we had some cheating, and even Poopy with the priest with the freaking yits at the
oh
end. I
yeah,
thought that was cheating too. There's no human being in the world that could have guessed that. If there is, I don't know. That's crazy.
through
I
that.
couldn't see that coming from a mile away. Even if
No,
you told me that was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed that one.
no, I don't believe it.
No, I still don't. I can't believe it. But I thought that was masterfully done, and I thought it was interesting to have him revert kind of to the childlike state, right, where he's talking like a little kid, and you hear the inhaler, and that's what the noise that he heard. I always love that. It's like a classic Argento, cliche where we see a murder, but they remember vivid parts of it, and they're trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. I thought that was really well done. Something I missed, though, I skipped over, was Max von Sydow's death.
Yes.
I thought that was a really good sequence. We see Max von Sydow. He's in his little house with his parrot. He's piecing the puzzle pieces together. He's starting to figure it out. All of a sudden, the lights go out. And just for a minute there, I'm like, man, this is why Argento is the man. Like, you get that like uneasy feeling as the killer enters the room, and he's shooting, and nothing's happening. And the killer's coming closer and closer and closer. Oh my God. I thought that whole sequence was just frightening and really, really masterfully done. Don't you?
Yes. That one and the last shot.
Oh, sure. Last shot, right?
Yes. I wasn't expecting it. And, it was something that it gets you, like, it wakes you up. You're like, okay, all right. That's how it's going to go. That's good.
Yeah, the antagonist, he has his whole kind of spiel, and hey, don't kill her. He has the switchblade to her neck, and he backs up to the window, and then the cops shoot him through the window, and this crazy like gore comes out. I mean, really good stuff. Sergio did a wonderful job here, I think, with the gore and all the the killings in this movie are worth the price of admission alone. It's a grand film. I like the story, characters, all that stuff. It's great.
Watching this movie, I learned one thing: don't put down the emergency brake. That's something that you should never do, because the consequences are bad. That's what teaches me. So
add that to the rules. Add that to the list of horror movie rules. It's like an encyclopedia at this point, man. I don't know. I don't know though. I think this is a great movie. It's a really nice return to form. Like I say, I consider this like a best of his career. He takes little aspects of his other films, but at the same time, he kind of puts them together and makes this new film that I think really was an underrated film in his whole kind of career. I really like Sleepless. It's a movie that I try to show more and more people.
I want to add a couple of things that I told you that in Italian, there's two differences that I
think yeah, please do tell me.
Gives it away more for Italians than for English people. So the original title in Italian is Non ho sonno, which means I'm not sleepy, more than sleepless. Sleepless give more of a depravity of sleep. Non ho sonno, it's usually what the kids say to the parent when the parent said, go to bed.
Oh,
okay. So the kid always like, go to bed. Non ho sonno means like I'm not tired. Like how the kids say I'm not tired. In Italian we say non ho sonno. So it gives away a little bit. And also when he's solving the crime, one of the first nursery rhyme that kills the Giacomo's mother, the last name of her is Gallo, which means rooster. So the mistake that the kid does, he misunderstood the last name with the animal. So that's why he kills the mother, that the last name is Gallo, like the animal in the nursery rhyme.
Yes, so, and he even says that to him. He says, like, only a kid would do that. And that's his whole mentality is he's a child.
Right.
And like even I didn't know that whole thing about the title being different, because it is there. I know I watched the Italian version as well, where the English subtitles, of course, where Max von Sydow says, "I don't sleep. I'm sleepless." He says something along those lines. He's speaking with another woman who ends up getting killed as well. But there's a whole conversation between them, and I went, "Oh, is that where they got the?" That's even smarter, because it's a kid would say that. I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
It's so smart. I like that, man. In a world where we've had a ton of different like twist endings, giallo films, I like the whole kind of I was in the mind of a child and that's why I did the things that I did. I think that's quite scary, and I think the actor did a really good job.
He's good, man.
He had to do the high pitched voice too, which could have gone horribly wrong. And if you watch the English dub, it did go horribly wrong. That's awful English dub. So watch the Italian version with the subs. You'll thank me later. But I don't know, man. I love this one. I really do. I think this is a really nice return to form. And a lot of people say it's his last great movie. It might just be. Maybe for me, it's Mother of Tears, because I'm that movie's biggest fan. But I can get why people wouldn't like it either, because it doesn't have half the style that this does.
Grande, I still have hope for the maestro, and Dark Glasses, I would not say that has the same pinnacle as Sleepless. I think we're still under there, right?
Sure.
So he's still alive. I don't know for how long, but Dario, do another movie. Prove us wrong, please,
It
before
was
you die for another one. And, I hope it's better than anything else.
Yeah, for real. And I went to New York City. You know the story over the summer, and they screened Phenomena in 4K. Then Argento came out, did a Q&A, and then they screened Dark Glasses right after. And it was so surreal to see him in person and talk about some of his films and stuff like that. And it is so nice to see that someone who is that passionate about it is still making movies at this stage in their life. I mean, he's 80 something years old and he's still turning out movies. And I thought Black Glasses was fine. I thought it was a passable movie. Nothing great. Like I would say along the lines of A Card Player or
Yeah,
Do You Like Hitchcock, in that ballpark. Nothing terrible.
no.
Definitely a step up from Dracula. But I agree with you, man. I look up to Argento. He is the maestro, and he's one of those. I hope he keeps making movies because it's exciting for us, big fans to see the next Argento movie kind of come out. We don't have that with Fulci. Fulci sadly passed away so young. It would be so cool. I'd love that to be a reality. But with Argento, we thankfully have it.
And you say before, Inferno is not one of the best. For me, Inferno's cinematography, like it's up there, like the colors and all that New York, man, it's beautiful.
It might be his most visually beautiful film, and I think a big part of that is also because he worked with Mario Bava. What
Yeah.
happened was Argento got really sick when they were filming that, and Bava stepped in and directed that film for like a week and a half period. And I think all those beautiful colors. I mean, Bava helps that out too. I think Argento was more upset with it. I like Inferno, but I don't think it's Suspiria. Like I definitely think it's a step
No.
down from its Suspiria. But I think visually, I mean, Inferno might be his best movie visually. That's how great, colorful. That one needs a special edition 4K, like, however many scans you can do. That's one of those, I think, for sure. But I mean, it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to bury it.
And I like Inferno because he ties things together. It explained finally the three mothers, right? I like that beginning. Other than the skeleton at the end, which I find so childish and like out of a Halloween movie, a Halloween store. If you open an Halloween store, there's like that kind of skeleton in front of you. So for that one was bad, but leading to that with the architect and like the underwater scenes, I really like Inferno. That would have been better if the end was different.
Sure, and you're right. That's that Party City store skeleton at the end. It almost reminds me of House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price. Funny enough, where the skeleton comes out and scares the woman into the water. It's similar to that. We are death, glass smash. But it is. I mean, the building going around and the fire and all of that. Man, I think that's a really. Here's a question off topic, and then I guess we'll give our ratings on Sleepless. Inferno. Keith Emerson steps in, does the score instead of a Claudio Simonetti or a Goblin. Do you like the Keith Emerson score? I always felt it was a little bit trying to be Goblin and just you can't try to be Goblin. That's how I felt.
So I find Inferno too church-like. There's a lot of choruses in repeat, like that repeats the name of the mothers and everything.
Yeah.
Right? I find it a little bit repetitive, but the Sleepless soundtrack, I have a problem with it. And the problem is, what's his name? The guy from Elf. I always forget his name. Will Ferrell. He did a sketch on SNL about cowbells.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And in the soundtrack, the main soundtrack, there are cowbells. And every time I hear the cowbell, man, I go, it's more cowbells. So for me, it's becoming a joke that the soundtrack of Sleepless, but it's beautiful. It's just the cowbells there that throw me off, man.
It ruined it for you. That's right. And again, using that was smart for this movie because the whole nursery rhyme, like that was. I think Goblin did great. I was so happy that he went back with Goblin because I think most of the rest of his movies after this, he went back with Claudio Simonetti. just
Yes.
Claudio Simonetti. And I mean, Claudio's great too, but to get Goblin back together for the first time in an Argento movie in I don't know how many years. I mean, it had probably been, I mean, forever, right?
Or 82, the last one, Tenebrae.
Tenebrae. So Tenebrae was the last Goblin score that.
Tenebrae, yeah, which I like the score in Tenebrae too. Awesome.
Oh, I love it. That's a
Yeah.
great score. And the that's wow. It's almost 20 years
Yeah.
later until they
20
work
years
together
after they
again.
put them together, and the damn
Wow.
cowbell ruined it for me. But
The damn
the
cowbell.
damn
God damn it.
cowbell.
If you had to rate Sleepless out of 10, what would you give it?
I gave House with Laughing Windows 9. I'll give Sleepless 8.5.
I think that's a good rating too. I'm gonna go right there with you. I'm gonna go 8.5 for Sleepless as well. I really like this one. Highly recommend this Blu-ray. I thought this Blu-ray looked amazing. Just amazing, and it's an amazing looking film anyway. So to watch it in HD high def, it really popped off the screen. I thought it was really, really good. No, you did not, Mr. Grande Ram. We've been all positive tonight. Argento is starting filming in February, I think. That's what he said a few months ago. I really like Dark Glasses. I did too. I thought it was good as well. So that's awesome. You're going to start filming in just a month or so. That's really exciting and something I'm kind of looking forward to. Blue Oyster Cult Skin on SNL with Christopher Walken saying, it needs more. I have a prescription, and the only prescription is more cowbell. Just amazing, man. But I had a great time talking all Giallos with you, man. I want to thank you for thinking of the concept. You're more than welcome if you ever want to do another one of these. Maybe, I know Darren's a big Giallo guy, but this is a good idea. I want to do more shows like this.
If we can spoil, I'm okay, because explaining a Giallo without spoiling, it's impossible.
Right?
So, yeah, it is impossible.
It's tough, man. But no, and I think these are three very, you got a sleazy, gritty one. You have one that's completely abstract to almost every other Giallo I've ever seen, and then you have one from the Maestro. So I think these are your picks. You picked a very nice array of different Giallos. It's funny, you picked three different movies in the same kind of category, which I thought was a really smart idea. And I think these were all awesome movies.
Another one, I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
More going to the 90s. What do you think of Michele Soavi, Stage Fright, which is another Giallo that people don't talk about as much?
Stage Fright's excellent. I'm a huge fan of Michele Soavi. I mean, that Cemetery Man is a movie I even say that. I'm the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. That's from that. That's totally Rupert Everett. I mean, I love that movie. Stage Fright's another excellent, excellent movie. I think Soavi is one of those guys that he really learned under the tree of all of these guys, your Argentos, Fulcis, whatever, and he really became his own big thing. I mean, I think he's fantastic. It's not even just Stage Fright. So many great movies that he made. I'm a huge fan. Here's one for you. If you had to give a top 5 Giallos for beginners. Just man. Beginners. Like I've never seen a Giallo before. Give them 5 Giallos to look. What would you say?
Oh, wow.
And also Mernsey says
dummies.
Stage Fright is great. Love the owl mask is a hoot. This is right, yeah.
So Giallo for dummies.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Well, you have to say, okay, Deep Red has to be there because you have to see the best. You have to see the best. And I will put there as well a Tenebrae. 2 Argentos in 5. At least the Maestro needs 2 out of 5 of that. And I would go Duckling.
Great pick.
Torso.
Great pick.
And I will go with what is the name? It's a Vice, and you only have the key.
Oh yeah, my room is a locked door, and only I have the key. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. That's a good one too. They have such colorful titles. A lot of these Giallo films. I would if I was to add one in there, I would take a Baba movie. Oh my God! But Mernsey said it right before I was going to. Blood and Black Lace. That's I think the perfect Giallo starter movie because you have the color, Black Love Killer, Baba behind the camera. I mean, it's just a wonderful. That's my favorite Baba. For sure.
Let's take the black, the room. It's locked, and let's put Blood with Black Lace. I follow the chat on that.
Sure. No, we got Martino, we got Fulci, Argento, and freaking Baba. You can't really go wrong with any of these. And I know you said you're straight out of Italy. Are these
Yes,
movies big there, would you say, or lesser talked about? Or Giallo more popular in Italy? Is this something I've always been curious about?
in Italy it's not that popular.
Wow.
So it was popular in the 70s and 80s. Okay, when that period of time, but then they are basically a B movie. You have to understand that like the New York Reaper, I not even on like Sky Italy they will show it. Like not even if you pay, it will be a part of that package. Like Italy, it's very bigot about these kind of movies where they show tits, where they show footsies, where they show like stuff that you're like censorship.
So is it more there against the sex scenes or gore scenes?
Sex and gore. You cannot
Both.
show
So
that.
both. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the New York Reaper is done for Anglophone audience, right? Not for
Yeah.
an Italian. So I want to say that other than Deep Red, Profondo Rosso, Suspiria, other Italians, if you don't go to me or someone that really love Giallo, if you go to my mom, for example, and you said the New York Reaper, she would say, no, Jack the Ripper. She will correct you. You're
Yeah.
wrong. It's like, no, I'm talking about a different thing. So they're not famous, they're not taken in consideration. And Argento, it's like it has an aura of maestro there, but you were right when you said that with Trauma, he detached a little bit with the Italian audience, and he still pays for it.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely for sure. That's a good way. I mean, yeah, it's something I was always curious about because it's like it's definitely not something where if I say that, there's a lot of Americans that go, what the hell are you talking about? Like, but last night, my dad comes down, he's Italian, and self-proclaimed Italian, big Italian. He goes, "What are you watching?" I said, "Oh, I'm watching a Giallo." He goes, "What's that?" And I explained what it was to him. And I said, "Oh, these paperback books with yellow pages." And he said, "Paperback books?" I said, "Yeah." And then he starts singing "Paperback Writer." I was like, this guy. I was like, this so-called true-blooded Italian. He don't even know what a giallo is. He
Can't
can't
go
watch a
wrong with
foreign
the
film.
Beatles. Can't go wrong with the Beatles.
Never can go wrong with the Beatles. Absolutely
So
agree
that,
with
that
that.
one, your daddy is right about that.
It was funny. It was just funny. Like I'm just looking at him, like seriously explaining giallo to him, and he just starts singing "Paperback Writer" on me. I thought
But
that was funny.
Grande, you need to understand that the history of Italy, like you have like Vatican City in the middle of your country. So you need to understand that the church influence in Italy it's big, and that's why they don't show it.
Let me ask you this: Do you miss it? Do you miss Italy ever?
Do I miss Italy ever? Okay. I'll tell you what I tell everybody. Here in Canada and North America, the people are better. They're more welcoming. Like we go with the House with Laughing Windows. The people are without cult and dagging people, but yes, they're a little bit like you're foreigner. Man, I don't know about that. Like I don't want to know you. I don't know. Here, the people they actually welcome you with open arms. What I missed at the beginning, because now I have a different routine, was the routine that I used to have for 25 years in my town. For example, in Italy, we live more your neighborhood. Like you have squares where you hang out with friends that they live all nearby because your school is nearby. It's your neighborhood. I would go out to the bar, smoke cigarettes, reading the newspaper, having an espresso. Then you go speak with another guy. I miss that. I miss my moped, but then now I'm here. The snow, the family. It's all different, but I love it in a different way. So I miss Italy. I miss my family. I'm the only one here, Grande. I'm the only one that moved. All my family is back in Italy. So
Have you been back since to visit?
not before the pandemic. Like
Oh, geez,
only
the
before the
goddamn
pandemic.
pandemic.
Yeah, but this July I should go back.
That's great. Yeah, so that'd be a few years it's been at least, and that's
Yeah,
really nice. You get to see your whole family again. I couldn't imagine, man. Like I'm pay. I mean, I've been in the United States forever, so I couldn't imagine just all of a sudden new faces, new places. I mean, it's daunting. And I would probably miss, for how many years was it till you moved from? Like, how many years were you there until you moved?
Well, I moved in 2009 and I'm born in 83. So I think I was 24,
26?
26. Yeah,
I'm
26.
26. There you go. If I'm gonna move to a different country, I'm gonna move to Italy now.
I moved here because I met a beautiful face in Florence that was from here. So we fell in love, and I follow her here because you can't go against love. You have to follow it,
That's
and then
fantastic.
everything went like wonderful. I have a beautiful family, and it's awesome.
That's beautiful, man. That's so beautiful. I'm happy that you found your true love and came here, and now you can experience the Canada. I've always wanted to go to Canada. Definitely want to go to Canada.
You're more than welcome to come anytime you want for me.
Oh, hey, man, absolutely. I would love to. We got to do a movie night or something. What part of Italy? AJ asks.
I am from the city where Hannibal unfortunately got shot, which is Florence. Yeah, in Tuscany.
Oh, wow. And have you ever been to like Turin or?
Yeah, I travel all around Italy because, um, especially, I met my wife in 2007. So we travel around Italy a lot because you want to be a show off, especially at the beginning of dating. So we went to beautiful cities, Alps. We went to Rome, we went to the Costiera Amalfitana, and we went to Turin, which is like so monumental and different than any other city in Italy. So it's Gothic and it's beautiful, beautiful city. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
great. Kubrick says he likes that. Likes Hannibal. Darren's asking, has Matteo ever seen Night Train Murders before? If so, what are your thoughts? And he said, I think I've asked John before. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Night Train Murders?
Is that a real story?
That's so it's also called Late Night Trains. There's numerous different titles. It's basically Last House on the Left, but it's in Italian and it's on a train. That's basically what the movie is.
Okay, so I never seen that, but funny enough, this is a real story. There was a serial killer probably in 2003, 2004 that was killing people in the trains. He
Oh,
killed
geez.
16, 17 people, just shooting them in the train, just because he was like that. So
Wow.
when you say 9 train murders, I'm like, this is probably from that serial killer.
Oh, I mean, this was, I believe, Aldo Lotto directed Night Train Murders. It's technically a Christmas movie because it happens on Christmas, so I guess it's right around the right time to watch it. I always felt what the style, lighting, all that stuff it's Giallo-esque. It falls. I think it's a weak movie. I never liked
What year
Night Train
came out?
Murders. I don't know. I just Last House on the Left is such a classic to me, but it's not as well made. I think that's why people like Night Train Murders more. It's like, oh man, it's actually shot by someone who had money and time and real actors, not just porn actors like Last House on the Left. Although I love Last House on the Left for that. I don't know.
Last House on the Left, it's amazing.
Yeah, give me one. I got one more question for you before, unless there's something else that you wanted to talk about. I just because I like hearing these Italy anecdotes. Do you have a favorite food that you have that's specifically from your country that you go to? I'm a big seafood guy, and I hear the seafood in Italy is wonderful.
The seafood is good, but as we said before, every region has its different things, so it has different resources, right? So, for
Sure.
example, the Tuscany, it's famous for the Chianti wine and for wild boar. So, one thing that reminds me of home, it's like a wild boar stew, which is like not Italian at all. But I'm gonna tell you something even more eerie and gross, maybe. What I really miss, there is one food that is made in Florence, which is called lampredotto. It's a sandwich with hot sauce and salsa verde, and it's made by innards of cows. And it's amazing. Amazing. It's like the intestine of cow, but it melts in your mouth. It's so good. So
It's
good.
hot sandwich,
Hot sandwich.
hot sauce, cow
Hot sauce,
intestine.
salsa verde, and innards of cows.
And is it like on Italian roll or is it just like
Like
a
on a
sub?
sandwich like this, like
Oh,
a
okay.
yeah, like a bun.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
And what's it called one more time? I'm sorry.
Lampredotto.
Lampredotto.
You got
I
it.
gotta Google that after we're off the air. Lampredotto. Let's see if I get that somewhere in the United States. That's just fun to
Oh,
say.
I
I want to
doubt
just
it. I doubt it. I doubt it.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think
Well,
you can. I don't think you can because of the health reason. I already did my research, Grande, about Lampredotto. It can be done here. It cannot be done here.
you mean to tell me you can't get a Lampredotto in
You
Canada?
can't. You can't. I tried. I looked into it. You can't.
Lampredotto, eh?
Yeah, it's
Is
tripe, but it's different. Yes, it's less chewy than tripe.
okay. Very
Yes.
cool. You're
Uh,
making me hungry. I
I
don't
have a
know.
question for you.
Sure,
We were talking about Masters of Horror,
sure.
and there is one episode that I think it's like I don't know. I love it, which is Cigarette Burns. Do you have any idea what
Oh,
is it?
I have the whole set over here. I'm a huge Masters of Horror guy. That's a great episode.
Do you think that would be an awesome movie?
Sure. I mean, it's that's the thing. Like John Carpenter, after Ghosts of Mars, he only made one more feature film. I wish that give me another half hour of that, and
Right?
maybe a little more budget. Great episode of TV. I love Norman. It's not Norman. Is it Norman Reedus that's the lead of that?
Oh, I think it's the German guy.
He's
Oh,
on The Walking Dead. The actor. I can't think of his damn
yes,
name.
yes, it's him.
He's the lead, and he's basically looking for this film called The Absolute Dama, and Udo Kier is in it.
Yes,
He's basically just playing Udo Kier, and that's why we love Udo Kier. He's great. That's a great episode of TV. I loved that show, man. I have the whole set. Huge fan. I mean, and I loved so many different episodes. I don't know. Have you seen Pick Me Up?
yeah. There's some of those that after you're watching and it's like 43 minutes each or 40 minutes each, and you're like, what did I just watch? Like you were like, why this was not done as a movie? I would go right away. Some of those episodes. So I have to give kudos to who put it all together. Like it was a great
Yeah,
idea.
I believe it was Mick Garris who put it all together, and he let them all have their creative control, right? Because this was
Yeah,
around the time, I think it was 2005 where that show came out, and you let John Carpenter come back, you let Romero they couldn't get, so they had him write a story.
yeah.
But you had amazing Argento and Carpenter. You got
The Japanese gore movie. What's his name? There's like one
oh
of those episodes. Yeah,
Takashi Miike did an
yes,
episode. His episode's amazing. The imprint, which they banned on TV, I remember at the time,
yeah,
because it was dealing with like they did abortion and torture,
yeah.
and that you can't be showing that on TV in the United States
No,
now,
no,
But
exactly.
I thought that was a damn good one. Darren says Dreams in a Witch House was one of his favorites. That was Stuart Gordon. He also did The Black Cat, which is another really good Lovecraft. I loved some of my favorites on that. We could do. How about we do? We could do a top five if you remember them. I loved Pick Me Up. I thought that was one of the best episodes of TV ever. Where it's the old school serial killer and the new school serial killer, and one of them is a truck driver that picks up hitchhikers. The other one's a hitchhiker,
Yeah,
and they're killing off all these people that got off a broken down bus until their paths kind of cross at the end. Fairuza Balk's in it. It is one of my favorite episodes of TV. It's so well written. I love it. That one was Larry Cohen, I think, did that, and it was the last thing he ever directed. May he rest in peace. Great one. What are some of your favorites of that?
I would put Jennifer there,
Jennifer's great.
and I would put Cigarette Burns on the top. For me, that movie really. I finished watching it. I'm like, what? Like this. I
He's
have to think
putting
about
his
it.
intestines in the fucking the reel. I remember he put his
Yeah,
intestines
he
in
put his
there.
sign not of cows, but he put his in.
That's a good one.
And he let
Right.
it go. So yeah, that was quite. I don't like what's going on, and there is an angel inside. I was like, what, John?
Yeah, it's
What?
his daughter, but she was dating him and killed herself. There was a whole. That's a great episode of TV too. And he I think his son did the music. I think Cody Carpenter did the score, and
Yeah,
it's a really good score. I always remember the one too that John Landis did with Norm from Cheers. What the fuck's his name? Oh my god, he's also in House too. I can't think of the guy's name. Somebody, geez, I'm gonna have to look it up and cheat.
who's the
George
line?
Wendt. George Wendt. I didn't look it up. George Wendt. George Wendt, and he is this like kind of overweight guy, and he imagines that he has this beautiful family, but they're all corpses of people that he's murdered. And he imagines this beautiful family, and that one I always thought was brilliant because it was funny, but it was also really morbid and sad, for this person that wanted the family, but instead, had to start murdering people in order to get it. I thought that was a really good one. Darren mentions Incident on and Off a Mountain Road is another great one. I think one of the first episodes I ever did of Grande was I ranked them all, but maybe down the road I got to do an updated episode because it seems like people really like these.
Yeah, it was something different, for a horror fan. It was like a breath of fresh air done by the greatest. Like, it was something that was different for the time being, right? I found it a fresh idea, and I'm disappointed that there wasn't more, But
Yeah, that was I think what happened with that was it was like Showtime had the second season, and then what happened was they got cold feet and sold it to CBS or NBC, and then they made a spinoff called Fear Itself, which was censored. So you can't go from the Takashi Miike or Cigarette Burns or Jennifer or Peltz. Peltz is the Argento one
yes,
with Meatloaf, and the
yes.
haunted raccoon fur where he cuts off, he skins himself
I
at
think
the end.
that is an Argento as well.
Yes, that was the other
Right?
Argento one, which is
Yeah.
amazing too.
Me too,
But yeah,
Prestige.
I mean, once you went from that and then they censored it, it really was like cutting its balls off.
If
You
it's a
just
horror and you sense it, it doesn't. It's done. Like it's
yeah.
not a story that wanted to be told anymore.
I think don't they have now on Netflix? Guillermo del Toro did it's like an 8 episode series similar, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the case. I think it's called Guillermo del Toro's Tales, and it's 8
Oh, yeah,
episodes
yeah,
done by
yeah, yeah.
different filmmakers. And I haven't seen it, but I've heard really good things. I definitely want to check it out.
Probably gonna check it out tonight.
Oh, there you go. Are you off tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm off until the 5th. So
Oh, very nice. I didn't know that. So this worked out perfect with the scheduling.
yeah,
I'm working tomorrow, so I'll
sorry
be
about that.
working. Dude, no worries at all. I'll be thinking about tripe sandwiches all day. I'm gonna have to look it up because it sounds too good. But yeah, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, man. I had a great time
It
talking
was
all things
amazing, man.
Giallo. Yeah, you had a nice time. Fun, right?
Yeah,
Cool to be
awesome.
on the
Yeah.
show as part of the chat, right?
It's awesome to be part of the chat too.
Dude, oh yeah, definitely, man. But it's a cool experience, and I appreciate that you could make the time and guest starts, and I appreciate that. But yeah, no, this is the last show of the year 2022. It's been a fun year, a lot of great, colorful guests, and really fun discussions, topics, all that stuff. So everybody in the chat, thank you so much for all the support as always. We'll be back next week when it's the new year and all that good stuff. I got a really fun show planned, but for now, I really wanted to thank Matteo. Thank you so much for coming on, being a guest, and for all your support.
It was a privilege and an honor to be here. And happy 2023 to the entire chat and you as well and your family, Grande.
Dude, right back at you. Thank you so much. You're a pleasure to have on the show, and you're welcome back whenever the hell you want to come. Great show, guys. Thank you so much, Darren. Another great show in the books, Grande. Thank you so much, Kubrick lover Brian. Great show, boys. Triple M Merns, he said. Bye, everyone. We have to say ciao to Matteo, right? We can't just say.
Ciao, Missy.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for an awesome, wonderful night. Have a wonderful, safe, happy new year, and we will catch you next time only on The Graveyard. Good night, everybody.